Every habit, healthy or unhealthy, follows the same basic loop. So you can just imagine kind of a cycle. It has 4 parts: a cue or a trigger. Part 2 is craving or an urge. Part 3 is response, a habit or behavior itself. And part 4 is rewards. Welcome to the First Responder Families podcast, sponsored by Shadowproof at FHE Health, a nationally recognized behavioral health provider. I am your host, Ivona Bhadha, a director of family services at FHE Health and a family, couples, and trauma therapist. Join me for meaningful conversations and talks that support wellness and mental health of first responders and their families. Welcome back to the First Responder Families podcast. This episode is for first responders of all kinds: law enforcement, firefighters, EMTs, emergency dispatchers, military, and for the partners and families who live alongside the work they do. This is a solo episode, and I'm going to talk with you about how new behaviors, aka habits, are formed, how old behaviors fade, and why willpower alone rarely work. But before we start today, I want to pause and speak directly to you, to the first responders listening. Your work asks something extraordinary of your nervous system. You run towards danger. You hold crisis, trauma, and responsibility so others can be safe. Thank you for all you do. I mean it. And your work comes at a cost, mainly in terms of nervous system disruption and also the effect on your health and on your daily habits and on your relationships. So I want to ask you a question. Since you are trained to run towards danger, how do your daily habits reflect how you cope with the cost this type of work has? And to the partners and families of first responders, thank you for standing beside someone whose work often takes them away emotionally before it brings them home physically. Thank you for your patience, your flexibility, your invisible labor. You matter. And I also have a question for you. Are your daily habits reflect a person you desire to be? So as we enter a new year, many of us start thinking about New Year's resolutions, what we want to change, what we want to do differently, what we hope this year will bring. And since we already know that New Year's resolutions don't always last beyond February, I'd like to explore with you these resolutions of change from a more practical and science-based point of view, the science of habit formation. And I will have an imaginary guest to help me to get all this together. I'll be speaking in the language of James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, a book written in 2018 that has shaped the lives of millions by teaching a powerful truth. Lasting change doesn't come from motivation. It comes from systems. James shows us that small, consistent actions compound over time, creating remarkable results. At the heart of his work is a critical shift from focusing and obsessing over goals to shaping identity. So from I can drink alcohol to I am a person who doesn't drink. Understanding our daily habits and how to change them and becoming a person we want to be is super important because we all have habits, daily habits. They are not abstract. They are lived daily and deep, and they are deeply personal, and they shape our lives. And they are very specific, I would say, within first responder culture and first responder families. So, for example, at FHE Health, a behavioral treatment facility, where we have a privilege to work with first responders, helping to reshape their personal lives and their mental health through multiple mind body therapists, but also through the power of therapeutic community of other first responders. We see how the habits of first responders influence the habits or behaviors, responses of their spouses, and often their children as well. For example, many first responders come home from shift needing quiet. They want to decompress. They want low stimulation. Home may be the first place where their nervous system finally feels safe enough to power down. At the same time, their spouse may have been alone all day or several days, possibly with small children. They may be longing for connection, for conversation, for emotional presence. So, what do you think happens next? Often this creates a relational pattern. On one side, there is a habit of withdrawal or avoidance from the first responder, needing decompress. On the other side, there's anxiety, hypervigilance, or walking on eggshells from the spouse. In interviews I have done, first responders have told me they wish they could decompress from the work shift in a more effective way. So they don't shut down or shut their spouses out. And spouses have told me they wish they could stop walking on eggshells and find a way to relax, even when their partner feels edgy or shut down. This matters because first responder work involves chronic nervous system overactivation, followed by periods of collapse or shutdown once the danger or the need for being alert is gone. But the trauma doesn't always end when the shift ends. The body holds it, and the nervous system responds. So the question often arises, how do we find peace and calm individually and then relationally without disconnecting from each other? How do we stay human, present, and connected in homes shaped by extraordinary stress? So that's what this episode will uncover using atomic habits concept. So let me introduce you to a simple concept called the habit loop, how all habits are formed. And I think it's super important because we get focused on these New Year's resolutions or our intentions, and we don't stick to these behaviors before the habit is formed. because we don't fully understand the habit loop, how all habits are formed. So let's look at it. I believe once you understand how a habit is formed, you stop seeing it as a personal failure if you don't do a new behavior perfectly or consistently, and you start seeing it as a predictable process, and you will look at these 4 steps of these habits, so you will always be able to see what needs to be improved. So every habit, healthy or unhealthy, follows the same basic loop. So you can just imagine kind of a cycle. It has 4 parts: a cue or a trigger. Part 2 is craving or an urge. Part 3 is response, a habit or behavior itself. And part 4 is rewards. So the first part is the cue or trigger. It is the thing that tells your brain something is about to happen. For first responders, triggers are often very specific. It might be the end of a shift, walking through the front door at home, the sound of quiet after chaos, the feeling of finally being off alert. The cue itself or the trigger doesn't cause the behavior. It's important to understand that it starts the pattern, all the four parts of the habit loop. So trigger starts the pattern. It doesn't cause the habit. The second part of the loop is the craving. This is important because we don't crave the habit or behavior itself, which, like drinking alcohol, overeating on sweets or crunchy, compulsive scrolling on the phone, or even compulsive cleaning. We don't crave the behavior. We crave the change in how we feel. We crave what it offers. We crave the change of the present state of mind or heart. So we actually crave relief, calm, distance, space, control, numbness. Sometimes people crave feeling something, and sometimes people actually feeling too much and they want to numb. So there's always underlying longing and need. And listener, anyone who listens, if you learn to translate the craving in terms of what you really need, that's a game changer. And for family members or first responder, hopefully it will invite you to have more understanding, maybe even compassion, that will motivate to have a conversation with your loved one. What this drinking or this behavior offers you? What does it allow you to feel? So that's the craving. We crave because we have a longing. And, for a first responder, the craving after a shift is often, craving need for decompression, rightfully so, understandably so. And for a spouse, the craving might be for connection, being heard, being relational. Yeah. Let's talk about the third part of the loop. It's called the response, but it is the habit, the behavior you can see. It's the shutting down, pouring a drink, scrolling on a phone, withdrawing into silence. So if you see someone scrolling on a phone compulsively, I have done it. We have done it. We have seen people do it. So we can see them, they're like in trance, they had some kind of craving to do so. And before they even thought about it, it's automatic. The habit is already there. And they're scrolling on a phone, and that typically creates disconnection with human to human. On the other side, spouses experience already that when they are in that state of walking on eggshells, they may be doing something, getting busy. They may be monitoring mood of their spouse, or they may be their behaviors may be more like pursuing connection through nagging, complaining, or criticizing. All behaviors really make sense if you understand that there's an underlying need that is supposed to be met. The response is the behavior, but it only happens if it feels possible in that moment. What does that mean? It means that if alcohol is in the home and it's on the first, it's very obvious when you open the fridge, that will make it possible. If the spouse cannot get through her husband, for example, then she may get through him when she starts yelling or complaining, and that gives maybe the four part of the behavior or the habit loop, and it's the reward that I actually got his attention. And the reward is what teaches the brain, remember this worked. So we don't do things in our homes, in our relationships by accident. The brain remembers, and it uses as a kind of hope for the reward. This worked. And you know what? That's why we come to New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, and we reflect. I wish that we reflect more often than just on January 1st, but we reflect on what habits don't serve us anymore. So please, please, please be compassionate to yourself. We have bad habits because they have or had served a certain function. Nothing else was available to us. But as human beings, we tend to move towards growth and evolving. So that's why we will have moments in our lives when we will hear very clearly that this doesn't serve me anymore and it doesn't reinforce the person I want to be. And that's why in first responder families, certain habits of first responders can become self-destructive because with alcohol, even for people who are not first responders, they report that they feel more relaxed, or they can have more fun because it kind of works for little. The nervous system settles with certain behaviors. There is a reward. Tension drops, conflict is avoided. The moment of tension passes, and the brain records it as it worked. We'll try it again, because the brain is wired for efficiency and safety. and it stores that pattern for the next time. This is how habits are built, not through logic, not through intention, but through repetition and relief. So, thank you for listening and just summarizing it up. When we talk about breaking habits, we are not talking about forcing ourselves to be different. We're talking about understanding the loop and learning to be more intentional about changing the parts of this habit loop. The most important one is to be aware, self-aware of when we feel triggered and what we tend to do. What are our behavioral tendencies? And even before that, there is a certain craving, there is a longing, there is a need that wants to be known to the person who has it. Now, so that we understand how habits are formed, it's not always through logic or being completely intentional or in control. Our brain takes reins through triggers, cravings, responses, and rewards. So the next question becomes practical. How do we actually change them in real life? And James Clear, the self-discipline expert and the habits expert, organizes habit change into 4 simple but powerful principles, which he calls the 4 laws of behavior change. You can think of them as 4 levers. Pull even one of them consistently, and behavior begins to shift. What makes this framework so effective, especially for first responders, is that it doesn't rely on motivation. Because motivation is unreliable when you are exhausted, overstimulated, or coming down from adrenaline. And willpower is for all of us a finite resource, not reliable factor in sleep deprivation careers. So instead, these laws focus on designing your environment, your routines, and your relationships in a way that supports change. So your healthy habits that you desire depends on your structure of environment, your routines, and your relationships that support this positive change. So let's walk through them one by one. The first law, make it obvious. James Clear teaches that the best way to start a new habit is not by trying harder, but making the habit visible, obvious. Most of what we do each day is automatic, so we don't decide, we kind of react. That's why awareness is the first step. And one of the examples James Clear gives is an example of people who want to practice guitar or any kind of practice. You know, you want to become a runner, or you want to become meditator. You want to practice something. So with the guitar practice, put the guitar in the middle of the room where you cannot ignore it. If you want to become a runner, put sneakers in the middle of the living room, especially when you're starting the habit. Or a yoga practitioner, put a yoga mat in the middle of your room. So motivation is often overrated. Environment often matters more. For first responders, this is especially important. If alcohol is the first thing you see when you enter your home, if the phone is always within the reach, if there is no intentional transition between work mode and home mode, your environment is already deciding for you. So James calls this the secret of self-control. People who appear disciplined are often just better at structuring their environment. They don't fight temptation all day. They reduce exposure to it. In our home, we don't buy alcohol in grocery store. So that would be an example that the secret of self-control is just not visible. It's not obvious to our eyesight. And we do it also with a lot of high processed snacks and foods. From the first responders, what I know who report smooth transition from work to home environment, they report that they typically decompress in a healthy way before they enter home. So they're consistent in using tools like nervous system reset. They use grounding breath. They use other tools. It can be 3 minutes or 5 minutes of a box breathing. And they shift into a calmer state before they enter their home environment. They already shifted the state in which they desire for being relational, or at least being communicative and say, I wish that I can play with the kids, but I feel like I have no capacity and I need to just take a shower and go to sleep. In most cases, that's received well, but it can happen only from a state of nervous system that is feeling safe enough to engage in stating the need for space, for shower and sleep. And also those first responders or their family members who decided to embrace alcohol-free lifestyle, they simply removed alcohol from their home or from obvious places. All right. So we spoke about make it obvious, make it visible. The second law of behavior change is make it attractive. It's about how to make habits irresistible, because we don't repeat habits because they are logical. We repeat them because they feel good or promise relief. They promise what we hope for. If you start exercising regularly, you will start feeling better physically and emotionally. If you start eating healthier, it may be very subtle, but if you are focusing on those small wins, then you are working on that second law, making it attractive. So that's why the celebration of small wins, no matter how small, are very, very important. James Clear explains that the habits become attractive when they are associated with belonging, identity, and reward. Belonging, if you are with a group or community of people who are trying the same behavior. Identity is that you really want to become the person. And there is reward. There are wins. even small ones, but you can experience the wins right away. And this is where family and relationships matter deeply. If your social environment normalizes stress drinking or constant scrolling or emotional shutdown, those habits feel acceptable and even expected. On the other hand, when people around you value regulation, rest, and honest communication, those habits start to feel more attractive too. James also reminds us that behind every bad habit is a good intention. Again, to make space for compassion for those loved ones who maybe drink too much or overeating. It's not to agree with that behavior, but being curious about what kind of relief drinking brings them. Or overeating is about comfort. Scrolling is about trying to numb or escape or even feeling connected. So to change a habit, we don't just remove the behavior, we address the underlying craving. And we try to get that craving satisfied through connection, the need for expression, or the need for just creativity, whatever that need is, then we'll try to give it to ourselves. To personally, I do tend to overeat when I actually need rest. So it's an ongoing habit formation of giving myself rest, restoration, and relaxation without trying to bypass the craving for those needs, bypass it by numbing it with food so I can perform more. I don't think I'm alone, but thank you for relating if you relate. The third law is make it easy. The third law of behavior change is make it easy. By walking slowly, you will get further. It's about really not about drastic transformation or perfection. It really is about reducing friction. It is about understanding that, the habits that we want to inquire may be easy to do, perform the behaviors on a good day, but there are other days when you don't have time, when there are other priorities, and that's why you want to also learn about 2-minute rule. And that is super important in order to make the behavior you want to perform easy. So it means on bad days or days with no time or energy, you use 2-minute rule. So if I cannot do 60 minutes of intense exercise, I will put a timer for 2 minutes and do jumping jacks for 2 minutes. You may actually end up doing a little bit more movement because the brain gets motivated when you are exhausted if the behavior requires only 2 minutes. And you may actually be able to do more than 2 minutes. But that's not the goal. The goal is to have a streak of days when you perform that behavior you want to have. You want to have a habit. So the amount of time you have been performing a habit is not as important as the number of times you performed it. Like having a streak of 60 days of meditation will make you a daily meditator, even if you meditated some of those days only for 2 minutes. That's the beginning of identity, when you do something every day. So your goal to run every day can be scaled down to, today I just tie my running shoes, maybe I walk for 5 minutes. Or instead of 30 minutes yoga, you take out your yoga mat. Seriously, it's about the art of scaling it down on days when you have no energy and you have no time. This approach is especially compassionate for first responders because it respects nervous system fatigue. Progress doesn't come from intensity. It comes from consistency and focusing on what kind of person I want to become. Okay, so we are almost at the end of this talk, and I want to share about the fourth law of behavior change, and it is make your habits satisfying. In other words, find a ways to make it fun. Make it fun. And it is because of the cardinal rule of behavior change, what gets rewarded gets repeated. If there is a reward, if there is a dopamine release, no matter how small, it gets repeated. That's how our brain works. When we are more intentional that we are moving towards a healthy person we want to become, we are focusing also on dopamine, healthy dopamine. So how can you make your new habits feel satisfying? So it will last, so you will stick to it. Immediate rewards matter. And you have to be the one that really reflects on this immediate rewards and positive wins. If you had a better sleep because you didn't drink alcohol for a month, just really name it, share it with someone, and really take it in. Better mornings, less tension in the house, a sense of self-respect, better self-acceptance, less shame, satisfaction with life, whatever it is, look for little wins, no matter how small. The human brain evolved to prioritize immediate rewards over delayed rewards. So we want to become artists in seeing rewards, no matter how small. Because in order to stick to the habit, you have to feel immediately successful, even in a small way. So this last one, make your habit satisfying, increases the odds that the behavior will repeat it next time. So make your new behavior fun. And or remember 2 minutes rule. It is, I realized that I had like 20 days of daily meditation. I had a streak, and then I stopped because I started criticizing myself that I cannot meditate for 15 minutes. Why even bother? And talking to you, I reminded myself that even those 2 minutes matter. This is really a science and research. So please feel free to read Jim Clear's book, Atomic Habits. It is really amazing resource, and it's going to be a resource for us human beings for decades. And I want to also highlight the power of accountability. When someone else knows what you are working on, the habit carries social weight. An accountability partner, a spouse, a colleague, a friend, community that supports your new habits can change everything, not through pressure or self-pressure, but through shared intention and encouragement. Habits thrive when they are seen, supported, and celebrated. and it helps to pierce unhelpful perfectionists' bubble. So, as we are closing here, just reminder, when you are creating your New Year's resolution, think of it in terms of 4 laws of behavior change. Make your new behavior obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. They don't demand perfection, these laws, they invite participation. So you are unstoppable. You can do it. I'm just very grateful that I could share these beautiful teachings with you. And if you're still here with me, thank you for listening and thank you for work you do, both out in the world and inside your homes. Take care of yourself. Thank you for tuning in. The First Responder Families podcast is sponsored by Shadowproof at FHE Health, a specialized treatment program for first responders with mental health and/or substance use issues. For more information about our show and our services, check out FHEHealth.com. The podcast website also has a place where you can share your ideas or questions for future shows. If you are struggling, we want to help. Feel free to call us at 844-714-3403 or visit FHEHealth.com. We look forward to having you join us for our podcast next month. Until then, take care.